It's time for dinner.
Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong.
From the creative mind of Scott Bertelson, after 4 decades of teaching our impressionable youth,
The dinner bell.
you are invited to enjoy conversational morsels for the mind at Mr. B's dinner party.
Yeah, dinner.
The time has come. It's time for the Mr. B's dinner party. So gather around and listen to the podcast and see what Mr. B this time brings to the dinner table. What will he have as his appetizer? What will he have for his entree? What will he have for dessert? And what kind of beverages will be offered? Oh, I can tell you, you're going to leave feeling intellectually, socially, mentally, financially, what other adverbs can I find? Satisfied. I thought I would try the dramatic approach. I guess that didn't last long, did it? Anyway, Mr. B welcomes you, and here we go. Let's belly up to the table.
Let's have a seat round the proverbial table
Would you like to say grace?
with a nod to our higher power and Mr. B's spiritual journey.
For my spiritual journey, my happy ones, as I'm still clean, meaning that I stay away from my addicted foods, I am here today to talk about that binge eating disorder is an actual disease. Now, sometimes people occasionally overeat. Could be a holiday, whatever the situation would be. But that doesn't mean that you are a binge eater. When it feels like it starts to control you and interferes with your mental, emotional, and physical well-being, and you're eating large quantities of food in a short period of time, you can't stop, then I would say that you're a binge eater. Let's listen to the criteria. Number 1, you're probably a binge eater if you eat a greater amount of food than most people would within a limited time. For example, sitting down at the dinner table, you might eat 3 to 4 helpings of something, whereas the so-called normal eater would have 1 helping. You would have 12 cookies instead of maybe 2 cookies. You would have a half gallon of ice cream or a gallon as opposed to a bowl full. Another characteristic would be feeling a sense of compulsion or lack of control when you're eating. For me, as I've told you many times before, my happy podcast people, that I know when certain foods go into my mouth, I can't stop. I want to eat the whole pizza. I want to eat all the cookies. I want to eat all the pasta until I can no longer physically ingest anymore. That's a binge eater. Also, binge eating usually occurs at least once a week and probably has been going on for several months. For me, it went on for several years. And it wasn't once a week, it was almost daily. And so I was overstuffing my body with poisonous foods, trying to hold my stomach in as I was out in public to give the idea that I was very lean and trim. What a joke that was. And then planning my binges for the evenings. That was primarily my time. You're also probably a binge eater if you have feelings of distress or you have self-loathing. This is where the 12 steps come in to get rid of the self-loathing. Get rid of this feeling that you are inadequate. Get rid of the feeling that you're not good enough. You are more than good enough. Don't compare yourself to any other person. You are a unique child of God. Now, how common would we say binge eating is? It is one of the most common forms of eating disorders. And we know there's other forms too. Anorexia, bulimia. In the United States, it affects almost 3% of the population, and this includes all racial and ethnic groups. Yet, it is more commonly diagnosed in women than men, according to this source, by a ratio of about 3 to 2. It's also more commonly diagnosed in teens than adults, by a ratio of about 4 to 3. I can't necessarily say what the reasons are for that, unless more women are willing to admit it and men are not doing that. Why would teenagers be affected? It's because of all the stress factors that are out there today for today's teen. I'm not sure. What are the signs and symptoms of it? Number 1, eating way past the point of satisfaction. You keep shoveling it in and you know you're full until you get to the point where you are very, very uncomfortable. You're eating too fast to notice how much you're eating or how it feels. You don't even really taste your food. You just shovel it in. I have always been a shoveler. This started way back. I remember when I was a small lad. I remember I had a crush on my first grade teacher, and she always had to sit with us at the lunch table. And I would always try to be ahead of her in line. And so then I would sit down. I would gobble my food up as fast as I could. Of course, that would give me an opportunity to go back for seconds, especially for potatoes and white bread. And I wanted to be done with the majority of my eating so then I could visit with my teacher and try to sit by my teacher. And so that has been instilled in me from a very young age. And I still today, even being abstinent, find myself at times shoveling it in, not giving myself enough time to chew it, enjoy it, because I just don't think I'm going to get enough. Will there be enough to eat? Another characteristic is eating large amounts of food. Definitely a sign of an overeater when you're not hungry or even after you've finished a meal. That's why I told you when I used to go out to eat sometimes with friends, afterwards that I'd drive through a fast food restaurant and get more junk food to eat. Here's a really big one for me. Eating in response to emotional stress, also known as emotional eating. Big part of my disease. Somebody looked at me wrong. I'll overeat. Somebody said something mean to me. I'll overeat. I didn't get done everything I wanted to today. What else will I do? I'll overeat. The list goes on and on. These all have to be taken out of my daily journey. And I have to realize that I can get done as much as I can. It doesn't matter what other people think of me. I should not interpret what somebody's look means or somebody's eye contact or lack of eye contact mean or how they say something to me. Only they know what they meant. I am not there to judge. I am not there to judge. Another one, of course, for me, as I've told you many times, was eating alone and in secret. And I always tried to avoid social eating. because social eating was boring because I had to put on a show, so to speak, when I was in the depths of my disease. To not overeat because I don't want anybody criticizing my eating habits. Whereas if I ate by myself, locked the door, shut the phone off, turned off the lights, it didn't matter because I was in control. How about organizing your schedule around binge eating? I used to do that. I used to get everything done for schoolwork or phone calls or errands or whatever the case would be. And then my reward, of course, reward was overeating and binging. Here's one: hoarding and stashing food in hidden places. I didn't do that a lot. I did that somewhat when I was living on the farm with my parents. But I realized that that is a great characteristic of an overeater. Here's one: hiding eating from others, somewhat touched upon already, because you're embarrassed about how much you're actually eating. That's why I like to eat in private, because I didn't want anybody to know what I was actually consuming, because I was eating for emotional reasons. I couldn't distinguish emotional from actual hunger eating. Another characteristic is obsessively thinking about food and certain foods. I would do that. I could be what I consider an effective teacher, as I've said before, and be obsessing about the potato salad I was going to eat that evening, or the potato chips, or the ice cream, or the chocolate bars, whatever it would be. And that would be something that was my secret. Nobody else knew about, and nobody else needed to know about that. Also, the whole idea of frequent dieting, which means that your weight fluctuates. I went on many diets, as I've told you. None of them worked. I'm not saying they're not effective for people. I'm not. You have to find it out for yourself what you think will work. Here's a main one: guilt, remorse, shame, self-esteem issues, all related to binge eating. I had all of those. And you know what? Because this proves that I was insane, I'd tell myself after I had binged that I wasn't going to do it again. And I did it again. And I did it again. And I did it again until I realized that I needed to have some spiritual guide to alleviate and soften and quiet my disease. And that's my higher power. What causes a person to want to binge eat? Well, we've somewhat touched upon it. Is it psychology? Is it biology? Is it a learned habit? Whatever it is, eating can release pleasure hormones in your brain, serotonin, dopamine, which then encourages addictive tendencies. So there is an actual biological component to this. We also know that overeating can be a way, as I did in my life, of escaping or numbing uncomfortable feelings or compensating for unmet needs. Normally, if you come from a family with disordered eating, you probably are more likely to be a binger. I came from a family like that on both sides. On both sides of my family, highly addictive personalities. For some, it was alcohol. For some, it was gambling. For some, it was sex. But the majority of my relatives, for those that were affected by this, would be overeating. Also, I felt that my family, even though I do feel now in retrospect that they did the best that they could, had a pattern of dysfunctional emotional coping, that we thought food was a great way to deal with your anxiety, stress, shame, resentment, because it was very readily available, and nobody's going to arrest you, as the old cliche goes, for eating 15 cupcakes in the car. They would if you were intoxicated with alcohol. But you can be intoxicated with 15 cupcakes too, but you're not going to get arrested for that. Also, you're probably going to be more likely to be a binge eater if you come from a history of trauma or abuse, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, whatever it is. Also, depression is a cause. I am a depressed person. I have been on medication for depression, an anti-depression med, for years and years, because I clinically am prone to depression, and that also runs on both sides of my family. It makes no difference what the circumstances are. I had a cloud hanging over my head, and I couldn't get it to leave until I started taking the medication. Another reason that people sometimes overeat is if they have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, also known as ADHD. I think I have characteristics of that. Anybody who knows me would probably say I do. Have I been tested for that? No. Am I going to do this now at the age of 66? Probably not. Is it more manageable with the regulation of my food intake? Absolutely, it is. Substance use disorder. Maybe taking overtaking prescription pills. That can be an issue that you need to look at. So, if you are an untreated overeater, you're probably going to have, as I can relate to all of these, any of the following characteristics. Increasingly antisocial behavior, avoidance, lying, being secretive, with the old belief that what they don't know won't hurt them. Maybe stealing or hoarding food. Your depression, anxiety will probably elevate. Your distress, self-loathing, and self-harm will also increase. And what can happen to a body physically from overeating and polluting the body with excessive food? Type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, gallstones, fatty liver disease, kidney disease. That's just part of the list of things that could happen to you. So, if you feel that you are an overeater and you need to be diagnosed, you can get help. You can go online and try to find support groups for overeaters. You can talk to your doctor. Is there a way to live with this disease? Absolutely there is. Absolutely. And live happily. Maybe you need to go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, or maybe you just need to find a support group that meets weekly. Maybe your plan is going to include medications or going to a nutritionist. There's lots of different ways that you can get help for this. But the bottom line is you have to get help. You have to take the first step and admit that you are an overeater and admit why you're doing it, and admit to your higher power that you need help. You cannot do this on your own. You need spiritual guidance. And your spiritual guide, if you trust your spiritual guide, will take those cravings away from you. I 100% believe that. But you have to take yourself out of the equation. You have to get rid of I, and put in HP, higher power, HP. Help me. I can't do it on my own. Don't let any disorder define you as a person. You are, once again, as I've said, a child of God, and a child of God should treat his or her body as a temple of cleanliness. And you can do that by asking for spiritual help.
For the next course, come one, come all. Nothing spoiled here. From comfort classics to what's hot now. Film reviews from Mr. B's Rewatchables.
Welcome back. Welcome back. All right, name that tune. What's the name of this song, as I just sang the opening, that was affiliated with a very popular sitcom in the 70s? Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. All right, just pay no attention to the bad singing. But anyway, okay, for those of you who have your hand up in the air and say, wasn't that the song, the title song for the sitcom Welcome Back, Kotter? Yes, it was. And that's what I'm focusing on today for my TV review.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out. Welcome back to that same old place that you laughed about.
I think that if you have missed Welcome Back, Kotter, that you're missing out on a great sitcom. And you might say, well, where would I find Welcome Back, Kotter? I think it's on Antenna TV. I think you could find it on streaming platforms. You could buy the DVD set. It was on from 1975 until 1979. So it was very popular during my high school years. And it involved the story of Mr. Kotter, who graduated from a Brooklyn high school and then became a teacher and then went back to the school to try to teach some very, very, very unmotivated students, largely known as the sweat hogs. And they were a very ethnically diverse remedial education class. What does that mean? They were troublemakers. But he had a very good way of teaching and understanding and relating to these students. And so the series really focused on what happened in his classroom on a daily basis with these sweat hogs and how their lives changed because of Mr. Kotter. Also, this sitcom, which was on ABC, was the breakout vehicle for John Travolta. He played Vinnie Barbarito.
Hey, Kotter, up your nose with rubber hose.
I think I got that name right. I know it's Vinnie for sure. Anyway, and he was on this, and then what came right at the end of the run was his big debut in Saturday Night Fever, which catapulted him to mega stardom. One of my favorite films. Have to review that sometime. And so he played a highly unintelligent young man fun to know. The girls liked him, but he just didn't really always see that the light bulb should be turned on. So anyway, also in the cast of Welcome Back, Kotter was Marcia Strassman, who played Mr. Cotter's wife, Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, who played Freddie Boom Boom Washington, Robert Hayes, who played Juan Epstein, and Ron Palio, I don't think I'm saying that correctly, as Arnold Horshack. That's right, Arnold Horshack.
Hey, Vinny, you know why you don't got no freckles? Because they probably slide off.
And Gabe Kaplan, who established and created this show, says that all these characters were based on actual people he knew when he was in high school. And so he had a great rapport with his students. And he did a lot of things with his students that really made the administration angry because they just couldn't understand why he was treating them the way that he was. But he knew that he would approach these kids much different from the so-called typical A+ student. So he also brought controversy with this show. When the show first came out the first season, there were some affiliates who refused to air the show because, especially the city of Boston, was going through a tumultuous school busing program that involved widespread protests and riots. And the local affiliate felt that Cotter's fictional integrated classroom would only exacerbate the situation. Well, that didn't materialize. Instead, it became an early rating success, and it went on for 5 seasons. Now, teachers in other cities also had concerns about how Kotter would be portrayed. So they always allowed a union representative to be on the set to ensure the show protected the image of those in the profession. So Mr. Kotter only practiced techniques that were acceptable by the union. Many people thought that the Sweat Hogs' antics were very silly, but they weren't criminal, not at all. Gabe Kaplan, who was a comic before he landed and created this show, was a huge fan of the Marx Brothers. And he, probably, this has been said, patterned the Sweat Hogs after the Marx Brothers, who were big film stars of the 30s and 40s. So it was very apparent that these guys all loved each other, even though they had major controversy and they would get into conflicts with Mr. Woodman, who was the principal of the school, who definitely did not approve of Mr. Kotter and was always trying to get him fired. But near the end of the show, Gabe started to reduce his appearances and to break his contract because he didn't like the direction the show was going. And so that was part of the reason that the show came to a demise. I would highly suggest Welcome Back, Kotter if you want 30 minutes of sheer classroom humor of these guys from dysfunctional homes who are at a high school that is very much in need of updating and having more money involved and put into the school. These people all come from low-income backgrounds. And Mr. Kotter is a beacon of light in their lives. He not only could teach, I think primarily his topic was history, but he could also crack a joke. He befriended them, and he was a role model for the Sweat Hogs.
All right, sit down, Epstein. Hey, where you going?
I gotta go out and shave first.
I'll shave you.
Hey.
Here, take this home, put it in the water. In 3 weeks, you'll have a full beard.
And so the typical episode would deal with one Sweat Hog's dilemma, whether it be at home or with a girlfriend or work or conflicts within the school, whatever it would be. But it was done through humor. So take the opportunity for a blast to the past. This is not a classroom of high technology. Not at all. But it's a classroom of great compassion and love, and involves a teacher who cares for his students very, very much. The show, Welcome Back, Kotter. Take the time to see it. Cinema fans, I have shared with you such an extensive, varied list of films that I revisit, come back to over and over. This time, I've decided to talk about the 2006 crime thriller, The Departed, which was directed by one of the greatest directors, I think, of our time, Martin Scorsese, who is still directing. He directed such films as, the list goes on and on, Raging Bull, Casino, Goodfellas, Flowers of the August Moon, Taxi Driver, so many, 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 many more. The Departed is loosely based on the real-life Boston Winter Hill Gang. And the character, Colin Sullivan, is based on the corrupt FBI agent John Connolly, while Frank Costello is based on Irish-American gangster and crime boss Whitey Bulger. So there are overtones of truth to this crime story. The people in this film, amazing, amazing cast. Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Jack Nicholson, Mark Wahlberg, Martin Sheen, Vera Farmiga, Alec Baldwin, Anthony Anderson, all in this great film. This is the only film that Martin Scorsese received an Academy Award for Best Director, nominated for many other films, but this is the one that he received the Oscar for. It also received the Oscar for Best Picture, as I said, Best Director, Best Screenplay, and Best Film Editing. It has, on Rotten Tomatoes, 91% approval rating. The film was a huge critical and commercial success, bringing in $291 million. And I would have to say, and I've seen probably every Martin Scorsese film, this is my favorite because of the acting of Leonardo DiCaprio, Jack Nicholson, one of my favorite actors. We'll have to do a shout out to him sometime on here. And because of the story. It takes place in Boston, in the South Boston neighborhood, where Irish mob boss Frank Costello, that's played by Nicholson, he's a bad, bad man, plants Colin Sullivan, that's Matt Damon, as a spy within the Massachusetts State Police. So, Frank Costello had a mole, and that was Damon, in the Massachusetts State Police. So he would alert him to any kind of dealings with if they were going to get involved with any of the drug deals or try to intercede with any of the drug deals that Frank Costello was going to be involved with. Anyway, the Boston Police Department starts realizing that there's somebody within the police unit that is a mole. And so they hire DiCaprio, whose name in the show is Billy Costigan, to infiltrate Costello's mob crew, make them think that he is a mobster.
I'm the best friend you have on the face of this earth, and I'm going to help you understand something, you punk. You're no fucking cop.
Anyway, when both sides realized the situation, Sullivan and Costigan each attempt to discover each other's identity before they're found out. So, with that being said, Costigan was serving a term in prison for his cover, and committed other crimes. Sullivan began dating police psychiatrist Madeline Madden. Costigan manages to get Costello to recruit him into his organization, even though he's really on the police force.
Those guys you tuned up, they're connected down Providence. What they're gonna do is come back with some guys and kill you. Which sure as you're born, they will do. Unless I stop them. Do you want me to stop them?
Is this something I can't do personally?
Over the next year, Costigan becomes increasingly involved. His mental state declines, but the police that he confers with convince him to continue. Costigan then starts seeing Madden for court-ordered therapy. Now, with this being said, Costello is a protected FBI informant, sharing his discovery, and he and Madden have a love affair. One night, Costigan follows Costello into an adult theater and witnesses him giving Sullivan an envelope containing information on his crew. Costigan is instructed to give a visual idea of Sullivan, but is unsuccessful. When Sullivan realizes he's being followed, he stabs the man, mistaking him for Costigan, and flees. Costigan, fearing Costello will soon discover and kill him for being the mole, calls to end the undercover operation. But Sullivan has him followed, lying to the other officers. Sullivan calls Costello's gang to inform them of the meeting. When Costello's men arrive, Costigan escapes before being thrown from the building to his death. This causes a firefight between the police and Costello's men. Then we find out that Sullivan discovers Costello is an FBI informant. A news report reveals that Delahunt was a Boston Police Department undercover officer, but Costello suspects it's a false claim, so he would stop looking for the mole. Sullivan confronts a wounded Costello, who admits to being an FBI informant. Costello was Matt Damon. They exchange gunfire, and Sullivan kills him. Now, I could go into much more detail about the story and how this is all worked out at the end. I know it's difficult to follow what I'm sharing, probably, if you've not seen the film, but the basic gist is this: that Matt Damon's character works for the mobster Jack Nicholson, and he is in the police department, and nobody seems to know that he's an informant to the mafia. That's why the police department then brings in Leonardo DiCaprio to infiltrate the mob and see if they can find out who the informant is. Now, there's much death and destruction in this film, and it's very, very visually violent. And unfortunately, Leonardo DiCaprio has a very untimely demise. The character of Matt Damon, the informant who works for the mafia, he meets an untimely demise. And I believe the basic theme of this film is that you have to be truthful. You cannot be a mole. You cannot be an informant and do hideous, evil crimes like this. And Jack Nicholson as the mafia leader is unbelievably good. He is devastatingly evil. And again, huge fan of Jack Nicholson. He can play any kind of character. Throughout the years, he's done that. He doesn't perform anymore, unfortunately, but he's quite old now. So for that reason alone, I would highly recommend that you watch this film. The pacing is amazing. The interaction of the characters is amazing. And you have to watch the film closely in order to follow the story. And I tried to give you a taste of the story, but you probably found it difficult getting lost in all the names and the characters and what's going on. But if you basically keep in mind, as I said, that this film is about a person in the police department in Boston who has an association with the mob person. And the mob person finds out all of this information that's going on in the police and thinks that he has a winning situation. But unfortunately, he also meets his demise in this film. That crime does not pay. You're not going to ever win by engaging in crime. So, if you like films of high intensity, visually beautiful, superb acting, a very engrossing story, please put on your list Martin Scorsese's The Departed from 2006. You will not be disappointed.
And now, School Days with Mr. B.
For my School Days segment, friends, I'm just going to give you a random, because that's my key word, list of some of my favorite memories of elementary, middle school, and high school. Now, remember, folks, I started school in the 1960s. I was a child of the Vietnam era. One of my first memories is the death of John F. Kennedy. And so during the 60s, up until 1977, I was a product of the public school system at Sheffield Chapin Community Schools in Sheffield, Iowa, which now is known as West Fork because they encompass Sheffield, Thornton, Rockwell, and Swaledale, and Chapin. But let's go to first grade. Oh, yes, first grade. So many firsts in first grade. One of my favorites would be Dick and Jane. Now, does anybody's ears perk up when I say Dick and Jane? Yes, that's how I learned to read, was Dick and Jane. And The Adventures of Dick and Jane. And I don't think that reading program is no longer in use. But if anybody is of my generation, you might remember The Adventures of Dick and Jane. Also, Weekly Reader. We would get a weekly reader every Friday, I believe. It was so exciting. And we'd go through it and we'd look at some world event or some scientific event or social event. And it was such a treat to look at the Weekly Reader. Now I'm going to mention food. Of course, how could I not talk about food? We had real food. Okay? We had real mashed potatoes. we had real sandwiches. We had real casseroles. Oh, lots of casseroles. We had Thanksgiving feasts for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Turkey, stuffing, all of the above. Just everything. It wasn't pre-made. It wasn't in a box as everything is these days. And again, I understand that's probably why it has to be the way it is today with packaged foods. But that didn't exist at that time. And so the cooks would make huge vats of potatoes, mashed potatoes, or chili, homemade chili, or cornbread, or casseroles of all kinds. It was always, always delicious. Another remembrance I have of elementary would be phonics. That's how I learned to read along with Dick and Jane, was phonics, sounding out words. It was a monumental learning tool that helped me to have a much better understanding of the English language. The milk wagon. What's the milk wagon? Well, the milk wagon was a wagon that you would be put in charge of. We had a rotation of people. Then you had to go down to the cafeteria and put the right number of milk cartons in the milk wagon and then bring it back to the classroom when we had our afternoon break where we had our milk. And I think we even had chocolate milk at that time. And that was a great big thrill to be in charge of the milk wagon and to take that down to get the milk. Of course, you had to use your math skills to count how many milk cartons you had to put into the wagon. Also, elementary music was really fun. We sang fun songs. We sang folk songs, and we played the recorders. Remember those pseudo, I guess I would call clarinets? Recorders. And we thought we were ready for the New York Philharmonic. No, we weren't. But I really did develop up an appreciation of instruments in elementary school. And that was probably part of the reason that motivated me to go out for band in middle school. My final remembrance of elementary, of course I'll remember way more after I'm done today, would be show and tell. Now, I can't remember how often we did show and tell, but that's when you would bring something in and you would show it and explain it to the class. So if you had made something at home, or if you have a piece of artwork that you would like to share with the class, if you'd like to bring it in, then you could do that. Now, normally we did not bring in livestock, and we did not bring in human beings, but not that you can't be proud of any of those. I get that. But we would stand in front of the class and proudly talk about our little gift, whatever we were showing that day. Now let's move on to middle school. Now we all know that middle school years can be tough. Oh yes. But they can be fun too. We used to have what we call skating parties. I believe we had one 7th grade year and one the 8th grade year. And they would bus us to Clear Lake at that time. There was a roller rink there. And we would all go one night, chaperoned by teachers and parents, I guess, and go roller skating. Of course, I never knew how to roller skate. I always hit the wall. But that's my only way of stopping. I guess that explains a lot. But anyway, we would go round and around in circles, and we'd hold hands, and we would have budding romances going on, all being adolescents. And it was fun. And then music and band, vocal music and band really were important to me. Loved playing Christmas music for the annual Christmas band and vocal music show. Played for contests. Played great versions of famous rock songs at that time that were put together for a band. And then something else that I thought was exciting, and I don't know if it's done anymore or not, but in 6th grade, I believe, we were required to take a course called Iowa History. And we had to find out and learn the historical background about our state and the agriculture and the famous people from our state and what our state is known for in the world. Iowa, I said, not Idaho, because normally when I travel, people say, oh, Idaho. No. Ohio. No. Iowa. Where's that? Well, as my producer always says, flyover country. Anyway, and I learned a lot about Iowa and helped me develop a much stronger appreciation for the state of Iowa. Then we moved to high school. And high school was really fun, really enjoyable. All my years were. I salute the school district from which I came. I had wonderful years there. But once again, band and chorus are really important to me. FFA, Future Farmers of America, I was a member of that. And we would have monthly meetings, and we would do projects. And of course, the big fundraiser, which still exists today, is selling fruit. Oh, did we sell fruit? And then, oh, yes, we had to deliver the fruit. Oh, yes. And also, I attribute my appreciation for speech, large group and individual, to my experiences with extracurricular speech in high school. We had a very small team, but we went to contests, we went to districts, we went to state. I was involved in individual speech all 4 years, and it was something that I realized that I wanted to continue with in college, which I did, and I also wanted to coach it, which I did for 39 years. And I never got bored with it. But one day, after 39 years, I walked away from it. But now today I'm a judge, and I really, really, really enjoy that. We also had plays in our school. They weren't high-quality plays. They normally were hillbilly plays. And they were class plays. There was a junior class play, and there was a senior class play. And I don't even remember auditioning. But it would be a play for almost anybody could be in. You might just have a part where you stand on the stage for a certain scene, but you're still in the play. And very simple sets, but it was a way to expose us to drama, which kindled the fire within my soul. And I continued with that in directing spring plays at Forest City and co-directing a slew of high school musicals also. We loved cruising in Mason City. This is prior to the mall, which I use that term loosely now. There's not much of a mall there, but it is transforming, I guess. But anyway, we had this huge loop that we would go around and around and around. Of course, we did that in Sheffield too, up and down Main Street, up and down, up and down, up and down. Did anything change? No, but we kept going up and down, up and down. And we would meet kids from other schools. We would go out to Pizza Hut, I remember. And that was always fun. And it was so much fun to do that on a Friday night after a ball game, football game, or after a basketball game, or whatever it would be. And I also remember prom. prom was fun. 1 year as a junior, we had it at our school, and then the next year as seniors, it was held at the Holiday Inn, I believe, in Clear Lake. Big change. When it was at our school, which was sponsored by the parents, they did all the cooking, the organizing of things. They served us a midnight breakfast, so on and so forth, had activities planned. I was the master of ceremonies at the actual prom, and that was really fun. And I had a chance to utilize my public speaking skills and to have people throw nuts at me from their nut cups. So, no, that's a true story. True story. But needless to say, I still really, really enjoyed it. And had wonderful memories of that. So there's so many great memories, as many of you can relate to, of my years in public school. Now, you might say, well, you didn't mention the learning. Well, that goes without saying. I do feel I received a very, very well-rounded education at my school when it came to math and science and language arts. I felt very qualified to go on to the collegiate setting after high school. So I thank all my teachers. I thank the Sheffield Chapin, now known as the West Fork school system, for allowing me to be a part of that. And those memories will be with me always. And were part of the motivation, as I've said before, why I became a teacher. So salute to my school memories.
Don't you forget this.
Well, there you have it. What will be on the agenda for next time? What could it be? I just hope that you are enticed to come back. Now that you are full, and now that you are getting your coat to leave from the dinner party, which I'm so glad that you came for, please believe me when I say, come back for another meal. Come back and have a seat at the table with Mr. Bertelson for another episode of Mr. B's Dinner Party.
Mr. B's Dinner Party is hosted by Scott Bertelson, edited and produced by Troy Thompson, recorded and distributed at Sunnyside Farm Studios. Music is provided by Soundstripe and platformed by Buzzsprout. Like our page on Facebook, subscribe so you never miss an episode, and share with your friends. Listen and enjoy every other Wednesday. Conversational morsels for the mind on Mr. B's Dinner Party.